Hey guys, I just want to make I haven't made one of these videos, like type of videos in a long time, so I just kind of wanted to make one real quick. It may not be quick; it'll probably be decently lengthy. So, but anyway, this is like a how-to video. So, just what it's for is how to install a MOSFET. I know there's tons of videos out there, but some of them, like some people tell me, like, hey, I don't know how to install a MOSFET. Like, this video isn't clear enough, or I don't understand what the person's talking about, or the camera angle wasn't right, or something. And which is understandable. I mean, I would honestly hate to sift through like 4 or 5 different videos just to find out how to install a MOSFET. And well, the first time I installed one, it really wasn't that hard. I kind of figured it out. I mean, pretty basic in my opinion. But a lot of people do get confused by stuff like this, and I mean that's just understandable. Um, so yeah, this is just a real quick video. I'm gonna show you guys how to install one. I already have the MOSFET installed here, as you can see. It's installed into a classic Army version 2 gearbox shell. So the first thing you're gonna get, like if you get a MOSFET, normally you get it in like a little plastic package, usually like 2 or 3 inches by like 1.5 inches this way. So it's a good size baggie. You get the whole MOSFET in there, and if you buy just a basic MOSFET, you normally have, the MOSFET with just like just the wires, the signal wire, wires to DINs, wires to the motor, and wires to the trigger contacts. This one is a Zarge RSC MOSFET, or a microfet. It's a 3034 based MOSFET. It's the most up-to-date version MOSFET, and it out of the box or out of the package comes with really long 16 gauge wire for the DINs that go to the DINs, and then it has I think it's a 22 gauge wire for the signal wire, and 16 gauge wire black for the motor, and then 16 gauge wire for the contact. It does not come with a wire that goes back down to your motor for positive. That is just kept right here on this one. Okay, so what you're going to do when you install it is, normally what I do is I measure everything, and now I don't measure because I do this so much that it's just kind of memory. When I work on an M4, it's the same thing, unless they want it wired to the front for some weird reason. But normally it's the same thing. You desolder the contacts. Like you desolder, what I do is I desolder everything. Get a better light here. I desolder everything off the contacts. Like I completely take them apart into where, hold on, I think I have a set here. I usually desolder the contacts and, well, desolder them, but I disassemble the contacts. Let me get this one out real quick. Dang it, it would be my day to not find the right screwdriver. Okay, here we go. Okay, so normally I disassemble the contacts, and this is one of the contacts right here. I'll take this apart completely off the housing, and I'll solder, usually I solder the signal wire on this one. This one is the, let me get back in there and show you. This one is the higher up one, and I usually put the signal wire on there because with the safety bar in version 2, it has room to swing back and forth with the small 22 gauge signal wire, or however small yours is. But usually I usually put that there, and that's how I do that. And I don't put shrink tube on it. I've found that sometimes when you do that, it kind of makes it difficult for the signal bar to go back and forth. And I've never had an issue with shorting before, so I'm not going to worry about that. So anyway, once I have that installed, I kind of set it off to the side, and the wire is connected to it still then. And then I take out the other one. Then I take out the other one. These are SHS trigger contacts, by the way. So they might be slightly different from yours because they're slightly different. They're not quite a drop-in, so at least always. Anyway, I take off the other trigger contact. It's not want to come off. There we go. Alright, so once you have this one off, I usually take the 16 gauge wire, like I said, and I solder it to this portion. This portion is the portion that faces up. if you're installing a FET into a pre-existing trigger contact housing, you already have a red wire here, in which case you can solder the other positive wire from the MOSFET onto here. So that takes care of that. Once you have that soldered on there, you can kind of fish them around there. I don't know if you guys can see that. You can kind of fish them around in there. You can see how, geez, I keep dropping screws. If you can see how my safety bar can go all the way up and go all the way back down without hitting anything, that's exactly what you want. You don't want any interference here. Also, you want to make sure that this part of the wire is, the motor wire that you kept on there is above the other wire, so that when you put this pin through that is in the receiver, that it doesn't tear up your wire. That's actually what happened here. That's why there's shrink tube here, because I accidentally cut through the wire. So I couldn't, like it was dangerous being just open wire there. It could cause a short, or it could just catch on fire for some reason. So it's best better to cover that up anyway. So I covered it up and I moved it off this side, and then I could put my pin there to lock down on the receiver. So once you have that installed, you have your housing fixed, you have the signal wire soldered on, you have the wires, or the positive wires soldered on, one to the motor and one to the MOSFET, which goes to the Deans. You, at that point, if you're going ahead and like replacing all your wire, which I didn't in this case, you can go ahead and put your motor connectors on. I use Lonex motor connectors, so just fine in my opinion. You can get them for cheaper, but I'm not gonna look around for them at Radio Shack or something, which Radio Shack probably doesn't have them for cheaper, but you could probably find them on Hobby King for dirt cheap, so I might do that soon. But I like being able to throw them in my order from clandestine and actually it get here quickly. So yeah, I take this connector right here and I solder it onto the wire, and I do cover this one up with heat shrink. So yeah, once that's done, well, first actually, before you do that, you want to make sure that your wires are long enough. You don't want to have them too short or too long, or else you'll be able to like get them in there, or you won't be able to connect to the motor, and that'd be bad. So yeah, you don't want that, and you have to restart basically. So that's just, you know, more time than what's necessary. Sometimes it really depends on the grip, but I usually just mimic exactly how it was when I got it out of the box. Like this, how this one's set up is, since it's Classic Army, it's like thinner on the sides. It's thinner on the sides, so the wires can't go up different sides. So that this red wire has to be tucked right here and then thrown up, like guided up there. And then it connects red, and the black one goes around it and connects to the black connector on the motor. Some like D-Boys, or I think it's Echo One and JG, you can put the wires on other sides, and I kind of like to do that just because both the wires are the same length. Like this red wire looks extremely long, like too long, but like I said, you kind of tuck it in there and then it goes back up the same side the black one does. So yeah, once you measure those, which I usually just go with factory default, like I said, measurements, just because it works and there's no reason changing it. Once you do that, you want to measure where you want to put your MOSFET. The good thing about this build is that it's in a full stock, so I didn't really have to do much cutting and rearranging. It was really easy to get the MOSFET in, no trouble there. So I kind of left the majority of the MOSFET there, or the wires that came with it. But once you have measurements done, you have all these other little things done. I lied kind of. Hold on. I did cut one portion of the black wire and then solder the wires back together. That's what you have to do sometimes. So, well, some people, what they do and what I do sometimes is I cut the wire short enough here so don't have to have an extra soldering point there, which would technically make the trigger response slightly faster, and you have a slightly more efficient system. But it's almost insignificant, so I'm not gonna worry about it. But once you have that done, and normally you sometimes have to cut more here, especially when you're working on M4s where it's kind of difficult to get through the buffer tube and through the little buffer tube nuts in the bottom. It's kind of difficult to guide things, so I usually have 3 soldering points here. One on the red wire, one on the signal wire, and then one on the black wire. Some people use connectors, which that adds a lot more resistance than soldering. So if you want to do that, go ahead. But that's your call, because I like the fact that some people can disconnect their MOSFETs and stuff like that. Legacy does that, and I think that's kind of cool. I might start doing that, but I don't think I will, because it's just more resistance. But yeah, see the Dean's connectors on here. That's what I do. If you are installing a fuse, you're gonna want to put it up here.
you're not gonna want to put it down here. That kind of get rid of the point. It's closer up here, so you can change it out quicker. It's just overall closer to the battery, and plus it being down here, it can get messed up with other wires, especially if you have it in a buffer tube. Normally, if you have this in a buffer tube, these are coming out of the receiver, and then they're going right into the buffer tube. So there's really no room for a fuse there, so you don't want to make a fuse housing there, get everything set up, and then throw it in the receiver and realize it doesn't fit. So that's kind of bad. You don't want to do that. Alright, but that's really all there is to installing a MOSFET. It really isn't that hard. The hardest part is if you have like a small gun, like a G36 or something, it is kind of hard to find a place to fit it, but just get creative and make sure it's not like just jammed in there and you have to pull wires out every time you get the battery out. Wherever you have the MOSFET sitting, you don't want it tugging. So you want it to be slightly loose in there. So yeah, that's all there really is to installing a MOSFET. Sometimes you do have to do different things, like I said, but once you install one a couple times and you figure out how it's done, there really is nothing to it. And I do know Valley River Arms made a video on this, but he actually didn't do it quite right, if I remember correctly, and he's removed the video. If I remember correctly, he had the signal wire on a positive wire and then the motor wire like by itself. I can't remember, but that was the incorrect way of doing it. If you saw that video and didn't see his correction on it, then I would highly advise that you switch it up, because to my knowledge that will work. Like it'll have the, it'll get, electricity from point A to point B and get BBs down to point C, but it won't protect your trigger contacts. I can't remember how he said it, but I haven't watched that video in a while, so yeah, I can't remember how he said it. But he did make a correction video, and he did say that he messed up, and that I think he said he's going to work on a correction video, like the actual how you do it, and he'll probably do something similar to this. I just kind of wanted to make one to show you guys how I installed MOSFETs. I know a lot of guys at Airsoft Society that send me their guns to work on. I'll show them the video of the gun working on YouTube, and sometimes, I don't know, if I was a customer, I would kind of like to see how my gun is on the inside, and it's just, I don't know, I just kind of like to do this for customers, I guess. But yeah, Valley River Arms might be making that video soon, I don't know, but I didn't mean in any way or have any intentions to like steal a guide from him. I mean, I think he said it himself that there's just tons of installations out there. So I mean, that's just his take on it, and this is my take on it. So yeah, but I did forget to mention one thing. Sometimes on gearboxes or in gearboxes, the wire channels right here, they're either really thin or really thick. There's always a lot of room, or there's always very little room. In the classic Army gearboxes, there's just like the perfect amount of room to where the wires don't want to come out, but they're not like so like difficult to get in and keep in. So they're perfect, really. I didn't have to do anything. I didn't have to glue. I think I glued right here a little bit, but it's come undone and it's just fine. So yeah, sometimes, like I just said, you do need to glue the wires down, and that doesn't really hurt anything. I've done it a ton, and you just glue them down. Yeah, that's what I do. Yeah, so if you guys have any questions, just comment below or send me a message on Airsoft Society or something. Oh, I did forget to mention one thing. Dang it. The signal wire. I usually route the signal wire from. Let me see if I can pull these up. I do route the signal wire underneath of the 16 gauge positive wire from the MOSFET, not the one on the motor. I route it underneath that, and then I route the positive wire from the MOSFET on top of it, and then I route this one. I like to do that because it's just, I used to wrap the MOSFET wire around here, like the signal wire, and you can do that, and it's all cool for that, but it made it longer than what it should have been, and it could be shorter this way. So this thing can have slightly faster trigger response. I know the difference is insignificant really, but it's there, so I just go and do it like this. And I think it's neater too. I don't have a wire hanging outside. It can get caught or it can get cut, and that'd be just bad. I have to go back and fix it. So I don't want to do that. So the signal wire, I don't have it directly underneath the positive wire right here. I usually have it off the side because it's so small that it's not going to get hit by the motor coming up, like right here and spinning on the shaft right here. But if I had it underneath of the positive wire, it could push up the positive wire and shred it. That's happened to me before.
So I always thread the signal wire off the side and then it goes back underneath. So I just try to keep everything safe like that. So yeah, that's how I install MOSFETs. Some people may install them differently. That's okay as long as they install or solder the contacts like this. Then it's okay. It'll work. But this is how I have found it to be the most reliable, easy, and efficient way of wiring a MOSFET. So yeah, I hope you guys learned something from this. And like I said before, I don't mean to steal an idea from Valley River Arms. I just kind of wanted to make my own take on it. So yeah, that's all. If you guys have any questions, like I said, comment, message me, or get a hold of me in any way, or ask another tech. So yeah, just make sure that tech knows what he's doing. All right, so I'll see you guys later.